You are now listening to Shotgun Sports, powered by Winchester. Recorded in the U.S. and streaming all over the world. We talk to shotgun shooters from all disciplines, world-class instructors, gun clubs, target setters, vendors, and industry-leading companies that fuel the sport. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and connect with us on social media. You can also catch our episodes on shotgunsportsusa.com.
If you or your club are looking to purchase Promatic traps, make sure you get in touch with Rick Hemingway. He is the largest Promatic dealer in the country and can handle everything for you. Rick offers new and pre-owned units and exceptional service. He also has a huge rental fleet, so no job is too big or small. Rick is well known for setting championship-style targets and designing unbelievable courses, so make sure you ask him about his turnkey services for skeet, trap, and 5-stand. Contact Rick today at backwoodsquailclub.com or call 843-546-1466. On the show with me today, I have a multiple-time All-American, 5 years on Team USA, a former PSCA pro, and a very experienced target setter. Please welcome to the show 23-year-old Braxton Oliver. Welcome to the show, Braxton. What's up, man?
Not a whole lot, just hanging out.
Well, good. I'm glad I got you on the phone with me, and this is the first time you've actually done a podcast with me, and I'm kind of excited about it. I've had a lot of people ask to get Braxton on the phone, and why don't you introduce yourself, tell people where you're from, and give me one win that you're most proud of.
Well, I'm Braxton Oliver. I'm 23 from North Carolina. One win I'm most proud of, probably the North Carolina State Championship. It's probably one of my more proud, I guess you could say, sentimental wins. That's one of my favorite wins.
Okay, so you've won a lot of stuff. Team USA, and you got to tell me why the North Carolina State means so much to you.
Oh, well, I did say it's one of my more sentimental value wins.
Yeah.
My grandfather was a 3-time state champion, and my mother's a 4-time state champion, and it's just one of those things that growing up, and I also have a lot of pride in North Carolina, which is another thing, but being able to win that tournament and carry on kind of a family legacy and add my name to the North Carolina Champions plaque along with my mother and grandfather is kind of a big deal for me. So that's always going to be one of my proudest accomplishments.
How many times is your name on the North Carolina State trophy?
Twice now.
Your mom's been on how many times?
4.
And your granddad?
3.
Wow.
So I've still got to do some catching up to.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. All right, when did you start shooting? You're 23 years old. When did you start shooting? How old were you?
I remember hunting when I was about 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And I remember shooting my first clay around that time too. I shot my first non-registered event when I was about 9 or 10. And then I never shot my first registered event until I was probably 12.
Okay, so basically you grew up shooting clays.
Yep, I started pretty young.
Who got you into shooting clays that young, and how were you able to shoot clays that young? What I mean was there a place that you went to, a place close to your house that you could just go shoot clays?
Well, I was very fortunate from a lot of people. My family, we owned and run a sporting clays range for nearly 40 years, so we kind of had somewhere that was right in my backyard. You know, I grew up on a range, worked on a range my entire life.
I know you got Hunter's Point, and the name of the other one is the one your family runs is Rose Hill, right?
Yep, Hunter's Point and Rose Hill both.
All right, and who ran what was Rose Hill first, correct?
Yeah, correct. Rose Hill was the first one.
Okay.
My grandfather helped build the range back in the 80s. And he was the manager for a long time there.
Give me some history on Rose Hill and how it got to what it is today.
Rose Hill, of course, it has a very long history, so I'm just going to start with
what you can
what's
remember.
Pretty close to what I can remember.
Yeah.
The Body family actually owns Rose Hill. They owned it many years ago and actually lost it during the Depression, from what I understand. And then Mayo Sr. went back and bought it either in the late 60s or early 70s. And when he bought the farm, he didn't know anything about farming, didn't know what to do with it. So he reached out to a farmer, which happened to be my grandfather. So they brought him in, and he pretty much built the place up and got the farm started. They did tobacco, cows. Over time, Mayo learned what skeet was, and he came home and said he wanted to build a skeet field, so they built a skeet field. And as time went on, they added trap, sporting clays, and then once they added sporting clays, it just kind of steadily evolved with the times, from hand-thrown machines to building a full course to adding automatic machines and, us throwing tournaments.
So you were there ever since you were small helping with this?
Yep. There are pictures of me walking around the course, being carried around the course, and everything around there, riding on golf carts.
So is that how your granddad got involved with clay targets, is just farming this piece of property?
Yep. For clay targets, pretty much just
wow.
Happened to be the man on the spot and running everything there for him. And he grew up hunting, rabbits, deer. He did all the hunting stuff. He was a country boy and grew up on a farm, and he just never shot a clay until finally Mayo came out there and said he wanted to build one.
Wow.
Build a skeet field.
That's pretty interesting. Who took you out to shoot your first clay? Your granddad?
I don't remember. I have one very vague memory, and it was kind of the whole family walking around shooting the course. And I do remember my dad standing behind me and actually pulled the trigger trying to shoot my first target.
Oh.
So as far as physically helping me shoot my first target, I believe it was my dad.
Yeah.
But like I said, my entire family was into it back then.
That's
Still
neat.
is.
That's neat.
It's our whole life.
Yeah. So who would you call your teacher when you were young? Who was the one that showed you what to do?
Yeah, that was definitely Grandpa. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So have you ever had a formal coach or an instructor of any sort?
Not necessarily. I did take one formal lesson years ago. Nothing really kind of stuck with me from that point, so it was always just Grandpa.
Wow. Well, he did a good
Grandpa and self-taught, basically.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job. Who was your idol when you was a kid? You had to have an idol.
I had quite a few. I certainly grew up, loved watching a lot of still one of the top guys today, but one person that has always stood out and someone that I really admire has always been Bill McGuire.
Yeah.
Just one of the most nicest, genuine people, hands down, that I have ever met in the sport.
I don't know how someone can be as happy as Bill is all the time. Every time
I can't figure it out either.
Every time you see Bill, he's smiling, wants to pat you on the back, ask how you doing. I just, he's always pleasant to be around. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So you come up shooting. All right. So when did you get serious with it?
Well, I always thought I was serious, but I never actually got serious until I was probably 16.
Okay.
15 to 16. I'd say I was about 15 when I actually wanted to start traveling and shooting some of the bigger shoots. You
shot some SCTP, but you didn't shoot a lot of it. You preferred shooting NSCA targets.
Yep. I'd already been shooting, by the time I started SCTP, I'd already been shooting NSCA for 6-7 years.
All right. Is North Carolina youth shooting, is it anything like South Carolina?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I wish it was. It's certainly gotten better. But compared to South Carolina, it's not even close.
That's funny because, it's, right there next to one another. And all of these kids are shooting in South Carolina, and none of them are shooting in North Carolina. It's just...
No. And then South Carolina, that youth shooting foundation is just incredible. The amount of kids and what they go through. And what's amazing to me and what I really like is they have their own circuit. So these kids actually have a circuit to follow throughout the year. They don't just get to look forward to one or two shoots like we do in North Carolina. Yeah, North Carolina, we really only have the state championship, and then we might shoot one fun shoot. But for some reason, we just can't get a collective of large amount of kids to want to travel from range to range, or even, try different shoots.
Do you know why is that? Do you have any idea?
Truthfully, I haven't quite figured it out. Our team, the Top Shots team that we coach and handle there at Hunters Point, we encourage them, and a good number of our kids shoot NSCA. They like to travel and shoot a lot of the NSCA shoots in the state. But we just, for some reason, North Carolina does not have a large, I guess you could say, contingent of sporting clay shooters, youth shooting, that are willing to, I guess you could say, stick with it and progress. Not sure of a good way to put it, but
yeah,
it's certainly lacking.
Yeah,
but I will say it has gotten better since is hopeful.
We're talking about shoots in North Carolina. You've got a big shoot coming up at Hunters Point.
Yep, that'll be the East Coast Championship coming up here in March. That'll be the 25th East Coast Championship.
Now, that is a pretty big deal for North Carolina. That's a pretty big deal for the East Coast, right? It's an old shoot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what I consider one of the grassroots shoots. It's like I said, it's 25 years, so this is one of the shoots that's been around since the early days of sporting clays. Kind of a heritage shoot, but it certainly is a big deal for North Carolina. It has been our larger shoot for many years now. Tell
people about Hunters Point. I've never been there. What to expect? What are you going to do?
Yep. So Hunters Point we're in Little Washington, just outside of Greenville, and we're right on the end of the Pamlico River. So we're a nice little river town. Hunters Point's not even 3 miles outside of town, so we're less than 3 miles from a lot of good hotels, restaurants, all on the waterfront. But then at Hunters Point, we do all the major events. We do 200 bird main event. We do 2 100 bird prelims, one Thursday, one Friday. 100 bird FITASC can be shot all week, and all the sub gauges and 5 stand. And we usually do a pretty good job setting targets. We bring in Rick Hemingway. We also bring in Eric Dorsey, and then Mike Oliver, my dad, and myself always set the targets.
Well, I can tell you this: whichever one Mike sets is the one you need to watch yourself on. Now, Rick's known to set some good ones, but your dad can sure do it too.
Yeah, he's what little he's done, he's made a name for himself to be a little mean. I'm
telling you. Now, how was that when you were shooting? Was you always shooting Mike's targets?
No. So most of the time for all our tournaments and stuff, I tend to set the targets, but occasionally we'll throw a tournament where I can't be there. I'll be somewhere else shooting another tournament. And Dad sets them, and I always check on the scores, and I'm always worried when I check on the scores.
HOA 63.
It's never been that bad, but he's certainly set some tough ones.
Where was the tournament that he set targets at? It was about 2 or 3 years ago. I want to say it was one of the regionals, wasn't it? Super Sporting, maybe.
It was. He set the main event course at the Southeast Regional at the Fork. I believe that was in 17.
Okay.
2017.
Yeah, I remember shooting that.
I'm pretty certain that's the one you're thinking of.
Did you actually win that?
I was runner-up.
I thought you were close. Yeah,
runner-up behind David.
Yeah, those were some targets right there. I thought, who set these things? And I seen him driving up on a 4-wheeler, and I just started laughing. I mean, there's some good targets there. So if I guess you go into the East Coast Championship, get yourself prepared. Go practice. Practice some hard ones. So how do you set courses?
I've certainly learned my lessons over the year. For the East Coast, a shoot like that, I try to make them fun. I try to be a little bit creative, try to throw 1 or 2 targets that people either never seen or never think to see. Even at the last year's East Coast, I actually threw a gravity rabbit on FITASC, which a lot of people got a trip out of that.
Is that one that just falls off the platform?
Yeah, just basically a hand roll rabbit, put it in a chute, and it come out going 2 miles an hour, probably 10 yards away.
Yeah. Those are, I shot one of those somewhere. I don't remember where it was at. And I think I missed all of them, which is good. You know, I hadn't seen one though. I hadn't seen another one since then. I don't know why. I think they're very interesting targets. There's no.
I think they're a lot of fun. It's certainly something that kind of throws people off when they first see it. They're too worried about, trying to figure out what they're seeing instead of worrying about trying to figure out how to shoot it. But it's certainly something fun. Like I said, it's something different. You don't see it very often.
What kind of targets do you like to shoot?
I'd say I'm a big fan of long targets. Those I typically, I'm a big fan of those. I remember a lot of the courses we shot in the PSCA were probably some of the best courses I ever shot. I was a big fan of those. So very long, very fast targets.
PSCA was another good topic. Did you start on the PSCA when it started?
I did not.
Okay.
I remember I was not invited the first year, and I remember trying out for it for the second year and actually not making the cut. But then I believe I made it. I was on the PSCA the last 2 years.
They say the first year was crazy. Of course, I didn't see that, but they say the first year targets were absolutely insane.
Yep. Everyone, like I said, I never got to see them. I wish I could have. But a lot of the top shooters still talk about that first year PSCA.
Yeah.
And how difficult it was.
Yeah. So
even the last couple of years, I remember shooting the targets on the last couple of years and thinking, man, these are hard. And they were still saying, PSCA year one was way harder.
Yeah. I can remember the first time I ever went and shot a PSCA tournament. It was out here at Big Red Oak, and at the U.S. Open, I think is when it was. They had a qualifier for PSCA. And I've never shot one. I didn't know what to expect. And I get up on the first station we start on, and I was the first one in the box, and they threw the show pair, and I thought, what in the world is this? so the rest of the shoot was just like that.
Every single station was an eye opener.
Yeah, I mean, it made me think, can people really hit these? I mean, and then I think the guy behind me was Malcolm Parker. He gets up there and breaks them all. So, but anyway, so how have you gotten to where you are right now? I mean, what has it taken for you to get to where you are right now?
A lot of practice. Yeah, I mean, I've had several points where, I kind of have like a moment of, I guess like a realization, where I should start doing something. Mm-hmm. But there's never been a point where it just kind of switched and everything was good. But most of it was just a lot of practice. I mean, even when I was between 12 to 15, I put a lot of rounds in a year. I remember practicing when I was like I said, between 12 to 15, almost every single weekend, I was shooting at least 750 to 1,000 rounds every single weekend. I mean, 13 years old, shooting anywhere between, 50 to 70,000 rounds if you include tournaments.
Yeah, that's crazy. What's your practice schedule like now? How do you practice?
I don't practice very often now. I at least try to practice enough to where I stay comfortable, if that's a way to put it. Because whenever you're shooting well, there's a certain feeling you have when everything's going right, the gun fits well, and, all is right in the world. And I typically just try to practice enough to stay close to that feeling. Even now, running the range, family's running 2 ranges. Even though we run a range, I don't get many chances to go out and shoot myself. I'd say if a good time, I might go out and shoot 100 rounds, and that might be every 2 to 3 weeks. So I'd say I might go out and practice maybe twice a month for 100 rounds at a time. It's just enough for me to stay in the gun and stay comfortable.
Now, let me ask you this question. Can you tell me the difference in having raw talent and breaking clays versus having to practice a lot to be successful?
Ooh, raw talent. And there are some really good shooters who rely only on raw talent.
All right, so let's stop right there. When you say there are shooters that rely on raw talent, they can go out there and they can deal with it. They don't have to practice much. They have got what it takes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep. And it might not be a top tier shooter. It might not be a master class shooter. It's just someone who I've seen, I don't know how many people just join, and as they start moving up the classes, and they do it very quickly, but there's one guy who's been to our range now. He's been shooting sporting clays less than 4 months, and he's already moved up a couple classes. He practices maybe once a week, but he just shows up to every tournament, and no matter what you throw, he can just shoot somewhere around that high 70s to mid 80 range.
Yeah.
And that's purely off talent. And he's a very good shooter, very nice guy. But he will hit a point that in sporting clays, if you get serious about shooting, talent will only take you so far, because a lot of it's muscle memory. So until you start practicing and learning specific moves, specific targets, things that you struggle on, talent can only get you so far.
Yeah. So the guy that doesn't have raw talent but practices all the time and figures all of that out is going to, in the end, beat the guy that's just a talent shooter.
Yep. So the more, and it might take him a while to move up those classes, but if you put the time behind the gun and you actually, I guess you could say, become a student of the game, if you start studying every detail and learning tension, control, how to read targets, and you just put enough time behind the gun learning all those things, eventually you will get better and he will stay at the top of the game, versus the person who just picks up the gun, shoots great to start with, and just doesn't practice and just relies on that talent. How
do you read targets? Say you've got a big long bat flying out there. How do you read it? What do you do? Do you hold your finger up and look at it?
I do. I certainly use my hand, try to get my whole point and everything. But for me, like in a tournament, so in a tournament you get 2 show pairs. The first show pair I use to obviously to see where the targets are coming. And I don't look at anything specific. I just kind of pick out, okay, big looping chandelle. Obviously you want to try to shoot at the top. And then I kind of look around that top area, at the peak. And then the second show pair, I look at the details, like, okay, here's exactly when it turns. Here's exactly when it starts to fall. And I look for those details. And based off that, is where I pick where I want to break it.
Yeah. So you plan on setting targets anywhere, or are you just mainly focused on shooting?
I mainly focus on shooting. Like I said, I still get plenty of chances to set targets. Like I set everything at Hunter's Point. I'll set some of the stuff at the East Coast. I would love to set targets at other places. The only problem is I love shooting just as much. So
and you can't do both.
It's kind of tough for me. I can't do both. Certainly can't do both. So it's pretty tough. I would like to set targets at some other places, hopefully in the future. But for right now, I'd like to keep shooting a little bit more.
Yeah. You ready for the season to kick back off again?
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Last year kind of threw us for a loop and crammed a lot of shoots right at the end of the year, which, a lot of us kind of got burned out. So I'm kind of planning on a slow start this year, but I'm certainly ready for it to start. A lot of people are down in Florida shooting right now, and I won't start shooting until the Southeast Regional at the Meadows will actually be my first tournament.
Speaking of last year, you set the woods on fire in 2020. It seems like you were always in the top and stayed there. Just like every shoot that I looked at, your name was up there. What did you do to have a season like that? The
last 3 years, I feel like I've been shooting very well. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until this year, and kind of between 18 to 19, I had gun fit issues, gun problems, worrying about school, worrying about family things, certain things like that kind of, I guess you could say, hindered me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then finally, going into this year, I got everything was, right in the world. So my gun fit was great. I got a new Krieghoff. I got a, went to Jim Reed Greenwood, got a stock put on it, made sure everything was feeling perfect. And then went into this year just with a lot of confidence and kind of felt calm in a way, which was a big help.
So
I didn't do anything special as far as practice. I didn't do anything special as, new techniques or anything like just, I used what I've been using the last couple of years, just finally kind of cleared my head a little bit.
You said you had a new Krieghoff. What Krieghoff did you end up getting?
I got the Parkour's 32-inch fixed iMod in full.
How much better do you like this gun versus your old gun? I know you've talked about it before.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And for me, it's everything that I could possibly want and how I want the gun to feel and point. And I'm a big fan of the fixed chokes, and I'm a big fan of the narrow rib, so I don't have to worry about changing chokes, and I'm confident in the iMod and the full barrel. But then that very narrow taper rib is perfect for me because I like being very precise, and that very narrow taper is
well. I mean the narrow rib is. I mean, and the difference in that and the Parkour X is the Parkour X has that wider rib. Yep. So, have you tried that gun?
I have not shot it, but I have picked it up and felt it. And again, the balance is very good. I really like the balance, but I'm real particular about that taper rib. So I'm a big fan of just the regular Parkours.
Yeah. Now, did you have chokes in your other gun?
I shot a fixed choke gun before. I switched to a fixed choke gun about 4 years ago.
Okay, so you shot fixed chokes then.
Yep. Yeah, I've been shooting fixed chokes for the last 3 years, but I've only been shooting the Krieghoff for the last year.
Do you ever get up to a station and wish you had chokes, or are you just that confident that you don't need them?
I used to. Now I'm pretty confident. My when I think of a real close target, I think 10 yards in the end, something they throw right in my face. And to me, if I don't feel like there's going to be much difference between a cylinder choke and a full barrel at 15 feet. So I don't feel like it's going to open up enough with a cylinder that's going to make that much of a difference. So I'm pretty confident in the full barrel.
When's the last time you shot a target at 15 feet, Braxton? Did Mike set that one for you?
Where do we see? I've actually thrown a few myself. What was the one? Actually, I believe it was Doug Vine. Doug Vine might have thrown the last close target I've seen.
Yeah, well, Doug's known to throw some wild stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah, he certainly. There was one station at the Florida State that was, what's a good word? I'll say neat. It was a pretty neat station. But he threw a rabbit downhill below our feet. So the rabbit machine was even with us, and he threw it downhill. And I'd say maybe 10 yards. No, well under. It was under that. I'd say maybe 7-8 yards. It was pretty close.
Wow. Was it fast or slow?
It was pretty slow. He just kind of took the spring off of it and rolled it down the hill right below us.
Yeah, we're going to Gator Cup, and Doug sets the targets there on one of the main courses. And did you shoot it last year?
I did, and I'm pretty jealous. I'm going to miss it this year, because like I said, I really enjoy the big fast targets. So I know I'm missing out on that this year.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of those, that's for sure. And from what I've been told, there's going to be plenty this year also. So the FITASC he sat last year was crazy.
Yeah, I've already seen. I guess it started today, and I've already seen one post where they said it was pretty stiff.
I know you can get mad at it while you're shooting it, but that's what makes it fun. So let's move on to something. Team USA. You've been on Team USA for a few years now. What? Tell me what it took to get there. You've come up from shooting when you was 12 years old. Now you're shooting NSCA. You finally got the PSCA. Now you're winning,
Mm-hmm.
and you're also on Team USA. Does it take a lot of you've got to shoot all the regionals and the U.S. Open and the Nationals, but does it take a lot of dedication to be able to do all that, to be able to get on Team USA?
It takes a lot of dedication. I'm sure there's several top shooters that tell you there's been a lot of sacrifices to be able to make all those tournaments and to do it year in and year out, just over and over to be able to make those shoots. And on top of that, just, being able to make sure you're at top of the game to go to those shoots and perform to make Team USA. It certainly takes a lot.
So if you're normally at the top like you have been, what do you have to look at? What do you have to gauge to know that, all right, this is what I got to do at this shoot, or this is what I did at this shoot?
Yeah, to make Team USA, they base Team USA off those 5, 6, 7, or 8 shoots. But in those 8, 7, or possibly 8 shoots, they take your top 4. And Sporting Clays and FITASC has different requirements. So to make the U.S. sporting team, one of the 4 shoots that they take has to be the U.S. Open or Nationals, and then they take your next top 3 scores. So as we're shooting throughout the year, every regional and every U.S. Open, where we place in those shoots is crucial to making the team. Mm-hmm. And to go even further than that, even where you place, you have to stay at the top. So, for instance, like the system for scoring to make Team USA, what they do is they take your score divided by the champion score, which gives you a point something number. So, if you have like a 185 and HOA was a 188, you take 185 divided by 188, and you have a .9840 mm-hmm. out of a possible 1.
Okay, so the best is 1.
Yep, so the best is a 1. So if you take the champion score divided by the champion score, the best you can do is a 1. So 188 divided by 188 is a 1. And then, like I said, 185 divided by 188 is a .9540. Mm-hmm. So throughout a year, you're trying to make the best possible score out of a 4.0. And typically to make the team, you have to have like a 3.93 or 3.94 or better. So really you have to place within the top 3, if you can, all of them. If you place in the top 3 at every major shoot throughout the year, you're probably guaranteed a spot on Team USA. But that's pretty hard to do.
I was just about to say that. I mean, with all the guys that can shoot, I mean, it's just that's why all the same people go. It seems like you might have a different guy every once in a while, but for the most part, It's the same people that go all the time. It's just because they can shoot so well. I mean, it's crazy.
Yep. So I mean, you can try it, and that's the great thing about having 7 of those shoots. They only take the top 4, so if you mess up the first couple of shoots of the year, you have more chances to make it. But the only problem is it adds more pressure to make sure you place well the remainder of those shoots. And that's what makes the U.S. Open and the Nationals so hard for those of us trying to make Team USA. It's because we only get 2 chances at those. So if you mess up at the U.S. Open, your last chance to make Team USA would be the Nationals.
And you've made it 5 times.
Yeah, I've made it 3 times as a junior and twice as in the senior team, the open team.
You made it in 20 also, didn't you, this past year?
Yeah, 20 would be the 5th time. This includes my 5th time.
So where all have you been to shoot with Team USA?
My first year I made the team, I went to Italy. Well, let me back. 2016, the championships were in 16. I didn't go to England in 16, so I made the team in Italy in 16. I was on both the FITASC team that was in Hungary and the sporting team that was here in the U.S. 18, I was on the sporting team that went to England, and then also traveled over to France the same year. Mm-hmm. And then 19, I was on the team in Chicago and Northbrook. for the World Sporting.
That one where you went to France, that was like a month long overseas, wasn't it?
For some, it was. There was 1 week in between England, the World Sporting. There was 1 week in between, and then the World FITASC.
Yeah, that's right.
I will say I was one of the idiots that actually flew home in between and went back. I know it sounds unbelievable. It sounds great to stay in Europe for 3 weeks, but I can tell you, you don't want to fly back and forth in between World Championships because it sucks.
Yeah, well, let's just get you all messed up time-wise, too. I mean, it's
it was a pretty rough week going back.
So, what was your favorite place to shoot?
The best target-wise was hands down Italy. They threw some incredible targets, beautiful terrain. I mean, that shoot was just top-notch. But my favorite to visit has been Hungary. Targets were very good. Food was awesome. People were incredible. The place was awesome. I mean, the whole country, Budapest, the city. All around, that was a great place to go. And that actually, the World FITASC is there this year in 21. So I'm really looking forward to going back.
Yeah. Do they have air in the rooms over there, Braxton?
Very little.
Yeah. See, that's why I haven't made Team USA, because I'm not going to go over there with no air. So
I got another little fun story. When we went to France, the hotel did not have air conditioning.
Yeah.
So every night we slept with the window open. But it just so happened that while we were in France, the Soccer World Cup was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And France happened to win it while we were there in France. And I will tell you, I've never had less sleep in my life with horns and people shouting, car horns going off, fireworks, everything you can imagine. Like, the whole country was just completely crazy that entire night. And there we are trying to sleep with the window open, ready to shoot.
Yeah. Soccer's a big deal over there.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, especially when France won the World Cup. So that's I guess that's probably one of the largest honors in the world for that sport, and a big deal for their country.
Yeah. So you're looking forward to going back to Hungary?
I'm ready for it. That was a great trip.
All right, let me ask you this. What shoot are you most looking forward to here? Don't tell me North Carolina State. I want to hear something different, okay?
I'm certainly ready for that one. I'm always ready for that one. It's a tough one. I haven't really – if I had to say, I am ready for nationals again, just because that one – I've been the last 2 years. I finished 5th last year, and I finished 4th this year. Or I finished 5th in 19. I finished 4th overall in 20. So I'm fingers crossed. I feel like I'm getting closer. So
yeah,
I'd say I'm definitely looking forward to nationals this year.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at Claythorne and U.S. Open. I think that'll be.
Yeah, I do enjoy that one. I really do enjoy. That was actually Claythorne. That was when did Claythorne have the U.S. Open last? I remember 2012 was at Caribou. 13. I think Claythorne may have had it in 14. Last time they had the U.S. Open, I believe.
Yeah.
And to this day, that's still been one of my favorite U.S. Opens. That's been one of my most frustrating U.S. Opens growing up, but it's still one of my favorite U.S. Opens. So I'm certainly that one will definitely be a lot of fun to shoot again there.
Yeah. Tell me this: what other hobbies do you have other than shooting? You have any other hobbies?
I like deer hunt. Not really. I mean, shooting takes up most of my life. Between enjoying tournaments or running the range, it takes up most of my life. What small hobbies I do have, I guess you can say, just listening to music and trying to shoot a deer. So
2021, Braxton, should be a good year. Hopefully it's a good year. What are your goals?
This year I'm going to look forward to just hopefully enjoying shooting tournaments on a regular schedule. Not traveling. I am going to back off my traveling a little bit this year, but which ones I do go to, I'm going to the ones that I know I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to try to see a few different places and try to win a few more this year. Like I said, last year I had three. I was 3 for 3 in runner-ups and regional. So maybe if I can just win one, that'll be a good year.
Maybe you can get up to the next spot. You can be that number one, where they got to divide your score by everybody else's.
That's right.
Yeah. So sponsors. I know you got some sponsors. Who do you want to thank?
A huge thing to Krieghoff. They have been a huge support in the last year. I certainly can't thank them enough. I absolutely love the whole company. And they've certainly helped me out when I was in a tight spot last year. So like I said, I certainly cannot thank them enough. Mm-hmm. Same with Jim Greenwood. The guy's an absolute wizard in making gun stocks. And then, of course, I want to thank Report, and then I want to thank Granny Sherman and Mike Sherman at PMS. They've known me since I was a baby, and they've taken care of me my entire life. So, a lot of love for those two.
Yep. Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on tonight, and look forward to seeing you at the next shoot. I don't know when that'll be, but good luck for the season. And
yeah, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man.